The tragic death of Rebecca Cheptegei, a Ugandan Olympic marathon runner, has ignited widespread outrage and mourning, shining a harsh light on the critical issue of domestic violence in the region. Cheptegei, who recently competed in the 2024 Paris Olympics, became the victim of a horrific act of violence. Her life was cut short after she suffered severe injuries caused by her boyfriend, Dixon Ndiema, who set her on fire during a violent altercation at her home in Trans Nzoia County, Kenya. The shocking nature of the incident has left many in disbelief, as a celebrated athlete's life ended in a manner that has sparked both grief and calls for justice. Cheptegei's athletic career had earned her respect and admiration, but her untimely death has highlighted how even the most accomplished individuals are not immune to the dangers of domestic violence. The violent altercation that led to her death was a devastating turn of events, especially considering her recent achievements on the world stage. As details of the incident continue to emerge, the focus has turned to the broader issues of gender-based violence, particularly within the context of intimate relationships. Cheptegei's tragic fate serves as a painful reminder of the vulnerabilities that many women face, even those who appear to be at the pinnacle of success. On the morning of September 1st, 2024, what began as a routine day for Rebecca Cheptegei quickly turned into a nightmare that would ultimately lead to her tragic death. After attending a Sunday church service, Cheptegei returned to her home in Trans Nzoia County, Kenya, where her life took a devastating turn. Shortly after arriving, she was confronted by her boyfriend, Dixon Ndiema, and what followed was an argument that spiraled into violence. According to witnesses, the altercation was centered around a land dispute that had long been a source of tension between the couple. What began as a verbal disagreement quickly escalated into a brutal and horrifying act of violence. Ndiema, in a fit of rage, reportedly resorted to an unthinkable and vicious act, dousing Cheptegei in petrol and setting her on fire. The violence was not only shocking but also sudden, leaving Cheptegei with life-threatening injuries in a matter of moments. The flames engulfed her body, causing immense pain and suffering, while those nearby were left in disbelief and horror. Despite the immediate efforts of her neighbors and family members, including one of her daughters, their attempts to extinguish the flames were ultimately unsuccessful. The ferocity of the fire was too great, and Cheptegei was left with burns covering nearly 80% of her body. Following the attack, Cheptegei was rushed to Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital in Eldoret, one of the leading medical facilities in the region. Medical professionals worked tirelessly to save her life, providing her with the best possible care given the severity of her injuries. However, the extent of the burns made the situation critical from the outset. The burns not only affected her skin, but also caused internal damage, leading to complications that quickly worsened her condition. Cheptegei's body struggled to cope with the trauma, and over the next few days her health continued to deteriorate. As her condition worsened, Cheptegei suffered from multiple organ failure, a devastating consequence of the extensive burns and the body's inability to heal from such catastrophic injuries. Despite the best efforts of the medical team, it became clear that her chances of survival were slim. On September 5, 2024, just 4 days after the attack, Rebecca Cheptegei succumbed to her injuries. Her death not only left a void in the lives of her loved ones, but also sparked widespread mourning and outrage throughout the athletics community and beyond. The brutal nature of Cheptegei's death has left an indelible mark on those who knew her, as well as on those who have followed her career as an Olympic athlete. Her tragic demise has raised serious questions about the state of domestic violence protections in the region. For many, Cheptegei's death is not just a singular act of violence, but a reflection of the broader issues facing women in Kenya and across the world. The lack of adequate measures to protect women from domestic abuse has once again been thrust into the spotlight, and Cheptegei's story serves as a painful reminder of the urgent need for change. This tragic incident has underscored the vulnerabilities that women, even those in the public eye like Cheptegei, face in their personal lives. Despite her success on the global stage, she was not immune to the dangers posed by intimate partner violence. The grief and anger felt by her family, friends, and fans are now being channeled into a collective call for justice, both for Cheptegei and for all victims of domestic violence who remain unheard and unprotected. Rebecca Cheptegei's death, while deeply tragic, is not an isolated event. It falls within a troubling and recurring pattern of violence against female athletes in Kenya, exposing a broader crisis that transcends the world of sports. In recent years, the deaths of other prominent female athletes, such as Agnes Tirop and Damaris Mutua, have brought to light the alarming frequency of domestic violence cases, particularly against women who have achieved public recognition. Despite their success and visibility, these women were still subjected to horrific violence, often at the hands of intimate partners, leaving the athletic community and society at large grappling with the question of how such tragedies could be allowed to happen. The deaths of Tirop and Mutua sent shockwaves through the global athletics community, raising critical concerns about the safety of female athletes. The fact that these women, who had reached the pinnacle of success in their careers, were not immune to the dangers of domestic violence underscores the vulnerability of women in all walks of life. It shattered the illusion that fame, success, or a public profile could serve as a shield against intimate partner violence. Instead, these high-profile cases have shown that women, regardless of their status or achievements, can be targets of violence, often in the very spaces where they should feel safest, within their homes and relationships. This pattern of violence against female athletes has raised serious questions about the underlying causes of domestic violence in Kenya, particularly as it pertains to women in sports. Many female athletes face unique pressures, including public scrutiny, societal expectations, and, in some cases, resentment or jealousy from intimate partners who may feel threatened by their success. These dynamics can contribute to an environment where domestic violence festers, often unnoticed or unreported, until it escalates to tragic and irreversible outcomes. The deaths of Cheptegei, Tirop, and Mutua are painful reminders that even the strongest and most accomplished women can be vulnerable to the destructive forces of intimate partner violence. The issue of domestic violence in Kenya is deeply rooted and pervasive, affecting women across all sectors of society. According to statistics from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, 34% of women in the country have experienced physical violence since the age of 15, highlighting the systemic nature of this issue. These numbers represent not just individual stories of pain and suffering, but a societal crisis that requires urgent attention. The fact that such a significant portion of women have been victims of physical violence reflects broader societal challenges, including deeply entrenched cultural attitudes that normalize or minimize the severity of domestic abuse. Cultural norms in Kenya, as in many other parts of the world, often place women in subordinate positions within relationships, creating an environment where domestic violence can flourish. In many cases, women are expected to endure abuse in silence, either out of fear of social stigma, economic dependency, or the belief that such behavior is a private matter. These cultural attitudes, combined with legal gaps and insufficient enforcement of existing laws, have contributed to an environment where victims of domestic violence feel powerless to seek help or escape abusive relationships. Cheptegei's death, like those of many other women, has brought these issues into sharp focus, prompting renewed calls for societal change. The stigma associated with speaking out against domestic violence remains a significant barrier to progress. Many women, particularly those in high-profile or public-facing roles, may feel pressure to maintain an image of success and stability, even when their personal lives are marred by abuse. This silence not only allows the cycle of violence to continue, but also makes it more difficult for others to recognize the warning signs and intervene before it's too late. Cheptegei's death has reignited the conversation about how best to protect women, particularly those in high-profile roles like athletics, from domestic violence. It has spurred a collective reflection on the responsibilities of society, law enforcement, and institutions to do more to safeguard women from such violence. Cheptegei's death has highlighted the need for comprehensive and systemic solutions to address domestic violence in Kenya. This includes not only stronger legal protections for victims, but also greater societal awareness and education about the harmful effects of domestic abuse. It calls for a shift in cultural attitudes that have long tolerated or downplayed violence against women, as well as improved support systems for those who seek help. The loss of women like Cheptegei, Tirop and Mutua should serve as a wake-up call, galvanizing efforts to combat domestic violence and protect those who are most vulnerable. In the wake of these tragedies, there is a growing recognition that more needs to be done to ensure the safety of female athletes and women in general. The deaths of these athletes have sparked calls for action from advocacy groups, sports organizations and policymakers alike. There is a collective demand for more robust protections, including better enforcement of domestic violence laws, increased funding for shelters and support services, and greater accountability for perpetrators of abuse. The athletic community, in particular, has a role to play in fostering a culture of respect and equality, ensuring that women can pursue their careers without fear of violence or retribution. In the aftermath of Rebecca Cheptegei's tragic death, a wave of sorrow and outrage has swept across Uganda and the broader athletics community. The shock of losing such a beloved and accomplished figure under such horrific circumstances has prompted numerous responses from both individuals and organizations. The Ugandan athletics community, which had long celebrated Cheptegei's achievements as a marathon runner, has been particularly vocal in expressing grief and anger. Many have spoken out not only to honor her legacy, but also to demand justice and accountability for the heinous act that took her life. One of the most notable reactions came from the Uganda Olympic Committee, which issued a public statement condemning Cheptegei's death. Describing the murder as a cowardly and senseless act, the committee emphasized the deep loss felt by the country and the athletics world. Their statement also highlighted the urgent need for justice, calling on authorities to ensure that Dixon Ndiema, the man responsible for the attack, faces the full weight of the law. The committee's message struck a chord with many, encapsulating the widespread anger and the collective desire for swift and decisive legal action against Ndiema. The call for justice has resonated with countless people, both within Uganda and internationally, as many view Cheptegei's death as a symbol of the broader crisis of domestic violence. The Uganda Olympic Committee's stance echoes the sentiments of many who are now calling for systemic changes to address domestic violence. Beyond Ndiema's individual accountability, there is a growing recognition that more must be done to prevent such acts of violence from occurring in the first place. Advocacy groups, public figures and citizens alike are demanding that the root causes of domestic violence be addressed through both legal and societal reforms. This includes a call for stronger laws that offer better protection to victims of domestic violence, as well as more effective enforcement mechanisms to ensure that perpetrators are held accountable before violence escalates to deadly levels. The call for broader societal reforms extends beyond the criminal justice system. Advocates for women's rights have long argued that domestic violence is a symptom of deeper societal issues, including gender inequality, cultural attitudes, and the lack of economic opportunities for women. In the wake of Cheptegei's death, there has been renewed pressure on the Kenyan and Ugandan governments, as well as other regional bodies, to implement comprehensive policies that address these underlying issues. The emphasis is not just on punishing those who commit acts of violence, but on creating an environment where such violence is far less likely to occur. One area of focus has been the need for stronger support systems for women who are at risk of domestic violence. Many advocates are calling for the expansion of shelters, hotlines, and legal aid services that can provide immediate assistance to women in abusive situations. The tragic deaths of female athletes like Cheptegei, Agnes Tirop, and Damaris Mutua have underscored the fact that even women who appear strong and independent in the public eye may lack the resources or support needed to escape dangerous relationships. This has sparked a growing movement to ensure that all women, regardless of their social or economic standing, have access to the help they need. There is also increasing pressure on sports organizations to take a more proactive role in safeguarding female athletes. Sports institutions, which often serve as a critical platform for athletes to gain visibility and success, are being called upon to do more to protect their athletes from domestic violence. The deaths of Cheptegei and other prominent female athletes have exposed the vulnerabilities that many women face, even within the world of professional sports. Advocates argue that sports organizations have a responsibility to not only promote athletic achievement, but also to provide their athletes with the necessary resources and protections to ensure their personal safety. This pressure has prompted some sports organizations to begin reassessing their role in addressing domestic violence. There is a growing recognition that sports bodies cannot simply focus on the physical well-being and performance of their athletes, but must also consider the emotional and psychological health of those under their care. Initiatives such as providing counseling services, promoting awareness about domestic violence, and establishing clear protocols for responding to reports of abuse are now being discussed as part of a broader strategy to protect female athletes from harm. These efforts are seen as critical steps toward ensuring that athletes like Cheptegei do not suffer in silence or fall victim to violence. Beyond the world of sports, the deaths of women like Cheptegei, Tirop and Mutua have also brought attention to the urgent need for comprehensive strategies to tackle domestic violence in Kenya and beyond. While their cases have garnered significant media attention due to their public profiles, they represent only a fraction of the women who experience violence at the hands of intimate partners. Advocates are now pushing for more sustained efforts to address domestic violence on a national and international scale, calling for a multifaceted approach that includes legal reform, education, and community outreach. The response to Cheptegei's death is not just about seeking justice for one woman, but about ensuring that her death serves as a catalyst for broader change. As more people join the call for systemic reforms, there is hope that Cheptegei's tragic story will inspire action that could prevent future tragedies. Whether through stronger laws, improved enforcement, or societal shifts in attitudes toward domestic violence, there is a growing consensus that now is the time for meaningful change. In honoring Cheptegei's memory, many are determined to turn their grief into action, ensuring that her death is not in vain. Rebecca Cheptegei's death is a heartbreaking reminder of the urgent need to address domestic violence, especially against women in sports. Her life and achievements were remarkable, but her tragic end has exposed the vulnerabilities that many women continue to face. As her family, friends, and the broader athletics community mourn her loss, there is a collective call for action. This call goes beyond seeking justice for Cheptegei. It extends to creating a safer environment for all women, particularly those in high-profile or high-stakes careers like athletics. The outcry following Cheptegei's death should serve as a catalyst for change. The need to address domestic violence is not just a matter of justice for individual victims, it is a societal imperative. As more people join the call for reform, there is hope that Cheptegei's tragic story will not be in vain, but rather a turning point in the fight to end domestic violence in Kenya and across the globe.